Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Stota Shri Srimad Abhaya Charana Ravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Stota Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Goswami Thakur Shri Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki. Namacharya Shri Haidas Thakur Ki. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki. Jagannath Puri Ki. Ganga Mai Ki. Jamuna Mai Ki. Bhakti Devi Ki. Tulasi Devi Ki. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki. Taking over the world with Srila Prabhupada's transcendental book distribution Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnupadaya. Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namane. Okay. Okay, so Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 11, Text number 17. Bhratrivyam enam tat adhabra viryam upekshaya adhyedhitham apramattaha guroho harehe charana upasana astraha jahi vyalikam swayam atma mosham bhratrivyamenam tad adhabraviryam bhratrivyamenam tad adhabraviryam upekshaya dhyetitam apramattaha upekshaya yedhitam apramattaha Guror Hare Sharanopasanaastro Guror Hare Sharanopasanaastro Jahi Vyalikam Swayamatma Mosham Jahi Vyalikam Swayamatma Mosham Bhratrivyamenam tad adhabraviryam Upekshaya dhyeditam apramattaha Guror Hare Sharanopasanaastro Jahi Vyalikam Swayamatma Mosham Bhratrivyamenam tad adhapadraviryam Upekshaya yedhitam apramattaha Guror Hare Sharanopasanaastro Jahi Vyalikam Swayamatma Mosham Bhratrivyam enam tad adhabraviryam Upekshaya dhyedhitam apramattaha Guror Hare Sharanopasanaastro Jahi Vyalikam Swayamatma Mosham. Please repeat. Okay. Bhratrivyamenam tadabhadraviryam Upekshaya yedhitam apramattaha Jahi Vyalikam Swayamatma Mosham Bhratrivyamenam tadadhabraviryam. Upekshaya yethitam apramattah. Bhratrivyamenam tadadhabraviryam. Hare Sharanopasanaastro Jahi Vyalikam Swayamatmamosham. Mataji. Trivyamenam tadatavathaviryam Upekshaya yedritam apramattah. It's like in my room, you'll see it. Bhratrivyam. Bhratrivyamenam tadadhabraviryam. Pekshaya yeditam apramattah. Gururhare Sharanopasanaastro Jahi Vyalikam Swayamatmamosham. Anyone else? Okay. Bhratrivyam, the formidable enemy. Enam, this mind. Tat, that. Adhabraviryam, very, very powerful. Upekshaya, by neglecting. Adhyedhitam, unnecessarily increased in power. Apramattaha, one who is without illusion. Guroho, of the spiritual master. Harehe, of the supreme personality of Godhead. Charana, of the lotus feet. Upasana, astraha, by applying the weapon of worshipping. Jahi, conquer. Yalikam, false. Swayam, personally. Atma, mosham, which covers the constitutional position of the living entity. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy of the living entity. If one neglects it or gives it a chance, it will grow more and more powerful and will become victorious. Although it is not factual, it is very strong. It covers the constitutional position of the soul. O King, please try to conquer this mind by the weapon of service to the lotus feet of the spiritual master and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Do this with great care. Purport. There is one easy weapon with which the mind can be conquered: neglect. The mind is always telling us to do this or that. Therefore, we should be very expert in disobeying the mind's orders. Gradually, the mind should be trained to obey the orders of the soul. It is not that one should obey the orders of the mind. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that to control the mind, one should beat it with shoes many times just after awakening and again before going to sleep. In this way, one can control the mind. This is the instruction of all the Shastras. If one does not do so, one is doomed to follow the dictations of the mind. And the bona fide process is to abide strictly by the orders of the spiritual master and engage in the Lord's service. Then the mind will be automatically controlled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed Srila Rupa Goswami, Brahmanda Pramite Kona Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti Lata Abhij. When one receives the seed of devotional service by the mercy of the Guru and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one's real life begins. If one abides by the orders of the spiritual master, by the grace of Krishna, he is freed from service to the mind. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 11th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Jada Bharat Instructs King Rahugana. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shriyutaf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagan Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karana Sandho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sandhubhyevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namine Nija Guru Hari Vanya Krishna Chitto Vichinto Parihita Pitrigehadyanda Sanksara Kupaha Prabhu Bhajana Sukabdo Majjayan Somso Vishwo Bhuvijayati Vikaso Bhakti Purvo Yatindraha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Destarane Vagisha Yasya Vadane Lakshmi Yasya Chavakshisi Yasyaste Hridaye Samvit Tam Nrisimha Maham Bhaje Mukam Kati Vachalam Pangam Langaite Girim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy of the living entity. If one neglects it or gives it a chance, it will grow more and more powerful and will become victorious. Although it is not factual, it is very strong. It covers the constituent position of the soul. O King, please try to conquer this mind by the weapon of service to the lotus feet of the spiritual master and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Do this with great care. So this is a very important verse for us to understand. The importance of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead and also worshipping the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the bona fide spiritual master. By strictly engaging in service unto the lotus feet of the bona fide spiritual master, one can actually be able to conquer the mind. Like this verse says, and Krishna says so many times in the Bhagavad Gita, that our mind is our greatest enemy. There is no greater enemy to us than the mind. Therefore, it is our primary duty to conquer this mind and engage it in the lotus feet, in service of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his very dear servant, Srila Prabhupada. By engaging in the service of Srila Prabhupada, one must know very confidently that they are becoming very, very dear unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. One should understand that when one engages in the service of the previous acharyas, when one engages in the service of Srila Prabhupada, according to the instructions laid down by Srila Prabhupada, makes sure that this devotee is taken care of by all means. Prabhupada would give the example many times that, there may be ordinary people and the government may be taking care of them very nicely, but for the soldiers on the battlefield, on those men on the front lines, they're always given the special care. They're given the first priority to make sure that the soldiers in the front line are taken care of very nicely. So, when one gives everything that they have, completely surrendering unto the lotus feet of Guru and Krishna, when one gives everything that they can possibly get, and they give everything that they have in as an offering to the lotus feet of Guru and Krishna, then at that point of time, Prabhupada says is the easiest way to get recognized by Krishna. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yat karoshi yadashnasi, yat juhoshi dadasi, yat tapashyasi konteya, tat kurshma darpanam. Where he says that, whatever we do, whatever we offer, we should do it as an offering for the pleasure of Krishna. And by doing so, all of this, everything, by doing so, it becomes completely purified. So here you go. Here's a quote of Srila Prabhupada from the Room Conversation, August 22nd, 1976 in Hyderabad, where Prabhupada says, to be quickly recognized by Krishna, this is a shortcut process. He never says, those who are sitting in a secluded place, meditating or chanting, doing nothing. He never says that. they are my very dear devotees. But those who are preaching, Nachatasman Manusheshu Kashin Me, Bhagavad Gita 1869. Just like government takes more care for the soldiers, especially when they're fighting, they are giving their life for the state. So their comfort, the first consideration. In the warfield, enough supplies. Anything the soldier requires, enough supplies. So we should understand this very well. Prabhupada says in another place, actually it is a fact that everyone should preach and distribute books if they want to please me in the best way. Book distribution must be given stress always. He has spoken the right thing. If you do this sincerely, it is a fact that Krishna will supply everything else required. I blindly follow my Guru Maharaj. I do not know what is the result, so I'm stressing on this point, book distribution. He told me this personally. Book distribution is Bhagavata Marg, and temple worship is Pancharatriki Vidhi. Both are important for cultivating Vaishnavism, but comparatively speaking, Bhagavata Marg is more important than Pancharatriki Vidhi. As far as possible, both should go on in parallel lines, but still, Bhagavata Marg is more important than the other. So you are all intelligent boys, so you and girls, of course. So you should judge the desire of my Guru Maharaj and help me in that way. Letter to Sri Govinda, in Bombay, December 6, 1974. So Prabhupada, there's innumerable quotes of Srila Prabhupada helping us understand what is the main instruction that he received from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. The first instruction that Prabhupada received when he met Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, even before he got up from offering his obeisances to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that you are both very intelligent young men. Why don't you go to the Western countries and preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in English? And Prabhupada said, who will listen to your message of Lord Chaitanya when we ourselves are a dependent country? First, let's get independence from the British, and then we can go preach Krishna consciousness. And then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that Krishna consciousness is so urgent. It's the most urgent thing for a living entity. It's the most urgent thing. And it cannot wait. The Krishna consciousness movement cannot wait for any political adjustment. We can't wait for any political adjustment. And then he started quoting all these different verses from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, convincing Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said that in his life, that was the first time he was ever defeated in an argument. And he said he was very happy that he was defeated in that argument. And that time, he understood that this, meeting, this person who I met, he's a real sadhu. And Lord Chaitanya has left the transcendental power of attorney in the right hands. In other words, Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement was in the right hands, being under the personal care of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And the last instruction that Prabhupada received in Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's manifest presence, where he writes a letter to his spiritual master saying, my dear Guru Maharaj, you have all these amazing sannyasis and brahmacharis who are getting to live with you, they're getting to serve you all the time. But I'm simply a family man. I can give some financial contributions, every now and then, but other than that, I'm not able to do much. What is the best way to serve you? And then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada says, he writes to him, my dear such and such, you are very expert in the English language. If you go and you preach this message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the English language, you will do good, not only to others, but even to yourself. So, Prabhupada took this instruction of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur as the most important instruction of his life. What is the holiest place that we know? What is the holiest place that we know? More. That's right. Radha Kund. Radha Kund is the holiest place, the most sacred, according to Rupa Goswami. It's the most sacred place on this planet, in the entire existence, not on this planet, in the entire creation, both in the spiritual and the material world. Anyway, Radha Kund doesn't exist in this material world, but still Radha Kund is the most important place in the whole creation. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is none other than Nayana Mani Manjari. He is in his form in the spiritual world. He's a Manjari, and he, you know, he is said to be the personification of Radharani's vision of seeing Krishna. He's a personification of that vision. That is our Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Can we understand how exalted of a position that is? That someone is a personification of the vision of Srimati Radharani looking at her beloved Krishna. That is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur where he says, Hridaya bolile keba, dai tere dashira seba, gopi kata pranadhana kirtan. That someone whispered to me in my ear, someone told me in my heart. Hridaya bolile keba, someone told me in my heart. Dai tere dashira seba. Who is Dayata? Who is Dayata? Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Dayata Das. Shri Dai tere dashira seba. That Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his main important service, what is his most important service? Gopi Kata Pranadhana Kirtan. That Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's most important service is Gopi Kata Pranadhana Kirtan. Let's try to analyze what this means. Gopi Kata Prana, what does that mean? That Gopi Kata Pranadhana, what does this mean? That his service is to propagate the kata of the gopis, the intimate, most secret conversation of the gopis, the most esoteric, the deepest of the deepest secrets. Gopi kata prana dhana kirtan. That is their wealth. And what is the gopis' wealth? The gopis' wealth is Krishna. To propagate the gopi kata prana dhana kirtan is the most important service of Sri Dayata Das, who is a disciple and the one and only disciple of Srila Gorakishore Das Babaji, who gave him the instruction. He gave him 3 instructions initially. What are the 3 instructions that he gave him? Do not go to Calcutta. He said this in his in his Bagh Bazaar Gaudiya Math. He was giving this lecture to his disciples in Calcutta, and he tells, my spiritual master gave me 3 instructions. He told me, first thing, do not ever go to Calcutta, the place, the hellish place known as Calcutta. Do not ever go to Calcutta. And second thing, he told him, do not ever accept disciples. And he's speaking this when he is giving a Vyasa Puja address to his disciples, where all his disciples are worshipping him. And the third instruction that he gave him is never mix with worldly minded people. Never mix with worldly minded people. Don't ever mix with these people. They're nonsense, rascals. Don't ever mix with these people. And you know, everyone knows Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was going and preaching to all these worldly minded people, doing all these things. So he's telling this to his disciples, you know, and then he tells them that actually I'm completely following the orders of my Guru Maharaj. He tells them that I'm not in Calcutta. I'm actually in Gaudiya Math, which is actually the embassy of the Vaikuntha realm. I actually do not have disciples. All of you who are sitting in front of me as my disciples are actually my gurus, are actually people sent by my own Guru Maharaj to make sure that I'm actually practicing Krishna consciousness properly. Third thing, he tells him that I've never mixed with any worldly minded people, because when I go there, I never take their association, but I give my association. And then my spiritual master, Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, who's also known as Bhakti Siddhanta Kanti, says that all of this is in line with the first instruction that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur received from Gorakishore Das Babaji Maharaj, which is to preach the absolute truth, putting aside all other things. So this is the most important thing, to preach the absolute truth, putting aside all other things. This is the most important activity, to preach the absolute truth, putting aside all other things. This is the same thing that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur told Srila Prabhupada. And when they're in the holiest of the holy places known as Radhakund, where Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is Nayanamani Manjari in the spiritual world, is meeting with Srila Prabhupada in an intimate setting. In a very intimate setting, he's meeting Srila Prabhupada. And he's telling him, what is he saying? What is he saying? Is he giving him a Siddha Pranali? Is he speaking about how they are both going to go collect certain kinds of flowers to be decorated in the kund, in the kunja where Radha and Krishna are meeting? Yes and no. How is that possible? It's possible because this is the philosophy of Krishna Achintya. Achintya Beda Beda Tattva. Yes and no. Why? Because for a mundane person it may seem like they didn't, but for a person who's actually on the realized platform, they did. Why? What did Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually tell Srila Prabhupada? He told him, Jwalan hoibe, there is going to be a fire in the mud. There's going to be a fire in the mud of the Gaudiya mud. There's going to be a fire and everything is going to burn to ashes. All the preaching work, everything is going to burn to ashes. Why? Because every man, ever since we got in this Bagh Bazaar Gaudiya Math, Bagh Bazaar Gaudiya Math was the most opulent property that the Gaudiya Math had ever purchased, had ever got. And it was built by Jagadananda Prabhu, Jagat Bandhu Prabhu. You know, he spent so much money that if anything was even a little good, he would break the whole thing down and make them make the whole thing again. And it's very ecstatic to hear and read about how Jagat Bandhu Prabhu helped build this entire beautiful Bagh Bazaar Gaudiya Math. And he actually left before the entire temple, right before the inauguration of the place. And while he was on his deathbed and he was about to leave his body, he said, where is Prabhupada and where is Kunjada? And the name of one of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disciples. And both of them came, and while he was on his deathbed, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was filling him with Harikatha and transported him to the spiritual world. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that ever since we've gotten this Bagh Bazaar Gaudiya Math, everyone is fighting. Who will get this room and who will get that room? Who will get that room and who will get this room? Better, things were so much better when we were simply living in a small rented place in Ulta Dingi Road. Things were so much better back then, when we were living in the Ulta Dingi Road. Ulta? I've seen Ulta Danga and Ulta Dingi. Ulta Danga, okay. Ulta Danga Road. When we were living in a small rented place in the Ulta Danga Road, things were so much better. Everything was so much nicer. Things were so simple. You know, there were no complications. But now everyone is fighting. Who will get this room and who will get that room? It's better to sell the marble in this building and use that money to print books. He told him, if you ever get money, you print books. So our own Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, our most worshipable Param Gurudev, he took this as his most important activity. Even when this entire society was collapsing, even when everything that and there were so many people trying to like mess up the entire movement started by Srila Prabhupada while Prabhupada was on the planet by envious people from India and other places. Well, all this thing was going on. Prabhupada said, I don't care. I'm ready to give up this. I'm ready to give up this entire movement. I'll simply go to Vrindavan and I'll continue translating and writing my books because this is my most important activity. You know, we are not crazy people to simply stress book distribution all the time. I mean, we are crazy. I mean, it's a good crazy. We should be crazy. You know, many people say, oh, you're too fanatical about book distribution. If you have to be fanatical about something, you know, better to be fanatical about book distribution. It's actually a good thing. Some people, you know, the only thing they're fanatical about is not being fanatical, you know. So let them be the way they want to be. But as far as we're concerned, we can focus on the most important activity of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, you know, even if the whole society collapses, I will simply go on translating my books. What did Prabhupada do until his last minute? Until his last breath, what did Prabhupada do? He was translating his books. He was he was lying down on his bed. Nothing in his body was actually functioning. He was performing this pastime where nothing in his body was actually functioning the way it was before. But he was simply sitting and translating and giving his Bhakti Vedanta purpose. So is the distribution of Gopi Katha Pranadhana Kirtan a mundane activity? Is the distribution of Gopi Katha Pranadhana Kirtan just some karma yoga? There are sahajiyas who are infiltrated the Krishna consciousness movement, who make us believe that book distribution is a temporary activity. They don't make us believe that. They put forward their self-appointed upstarts who put forward such bogus arguments. There are people who actually say that this book distribution is simply a karma yoga. And if they just continue distributing books for a few lives, then they can come to the platform of being a raga nuga bhakta, a pure, where they can actually start to delve into the divine realm of spontaneous loving devotion to Krishna. So to such people, we kick their face with spiked boots, because we understand that this is exactly against the teachings of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Namaste Gauravani Shrimute Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine. We are followers of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was not tolerant of any statement made against that of any conclusion which is against that of Rupa Goswami's conclusion. So, people can say this is karma yoga, but actually no, it is the most transcendental activity. Because our own Srila Prabhupada said that book distribution is Nikunja Yuno Ratikeli Siddhyai Yayali Bhir Yuktir Apekshaniya Tatrati Daksha Ativallabhasya Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. What does this mean? Oh, you know everything. I want to give the devotees who are fairly new a chance. So what does this mean? You're chanting every morning for the past few months, some for the few years.
Speak up, we can't hear you.
Yeah, the spiritual master is expert at facilitating or spreading this love.
Expert at facilitating the pastime of Radha.
The spiritual master is expert at facilitating the pastimes of Radha and Krishna in the groves of Vrindavan. That the spiritual Nikunja Yuno Ratikeli Siddhyai, that Nikunja in the most intimate groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham, where Shri Radha and Krishna are meeting. Nikunja Yuno Ratikeli Siddhyai, that this attraction between Radha and Krishna is completely on the platform of pure love, Rati, that this attachment is completely transcendental. Nikunja Yuno Ratikeli Siddhyai. Yayalibhir Yuktir Apekshaniya. The spiritual master is very expert at making arrangements in the most intimate grove of Sri Vrindavan Dham in order for Radha and Krishna to come and enjoy. That's what this means. So Prabhupada said that book distribution is Nikunja Yuno Ratikeli Siddhyai Yayalibhir Yuktir Apekshaniya Tatrati Daksha Ativallabhasya Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Therefore, in this purport that we read this morning, Prabhupada is saying very, very, very boldly, the way to conquer the mind is to simply, strictly abide by the instructions of the spiritual master. By strictly abiding to the instructions of the spiritual master, the impossible can become possible. That by strictly abiding by the instructions of the spiritual master, something which people could conceive that, Prabhupada would say that people can conceive that impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary, Prabhupada said. Prabhupada said that. And we can see this in so many of the amazing things that Srila Prabhupada did. All he wanted, all he has, is for us to have a little faith. Because by having a little faith in Srila Prabhupada and Prabhupada's instructions and Prabhupada's message, impossible will become a word in the fool's dictionary. It will. Do not think it's some hocus pocus, mumbo jumbo. It will. It will happen. Yasya deve para bhaktir yata deve tata guru tasya te katita hyarta prakashante mahatmanaha. This is the last verse in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. And this is the most important verse in all Vedic literatures. What does this verse mean? Yasya deve para bhaktir yata deve tata guru. That for a person who has unflinching faith in Krishna and the same amount of faith in the spiritual master, all the imports of Shastra will completely become revealed. That is the meaning of this verse. It is the most important verse. This is the last verse of the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. That is the way that one can actually understand the most deep imports of the Shastras. We don't care for all the foolish ideas and conceptions of these people. who have no idea, who in the name of being Gaudiya Vaishnavas and being followers of Bhakti Siddhanta, preach exactly against what Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur preached. They're simply influenced by the Radhakund Babajis. We don't care, who are not in bona fide disciplic succession. Can you hear me? Who are not in bona fide disciplic succession. We don't care for all these people. We don't care for the conclusions of all these people. Because Yudhishthira Maharaj says, Tarko Pratishta Shutayor Vibhinnam Nasa Vrishir Yasya Matham Na Bhinnam Dharmasya Tattvam Nihitam Guhaya Mahajano Yena Gatasya Pantaha. That so many people have so many opinions. Tarko Pratishta Shutayor Vibhinnam. So many people will have so many conclusions. One cannot be considered a Muni unless one has his own opinion. As far as we are concerned, Dharmasya Tattvam Vihitam Guhaya, that the secrets of Dharma, the secret of the essence of Dharma, where are they hidden? Within the hearts of the pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dharmasya Tattvam. Therefore, what do we do? Mahajano Yena Gatasya Pantaha. Therefore, we follow in the footsteps of the great previous acharyas. Therefore, we do such a thing. Therefore, action of Srila Prabhupada to preach, we just preach blindly. Prabhupada is saying, distributing books, we should have firm faith in this instruction of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada gave his life for us who he didn't know. We know Prabhupada, can't we? We can see they had some rough idea of painting, and he asked them to paint. They thought, oh no, how can I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the most beautiful. I think you could use that. It'll help you. Vishnu. So, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the most beautiful part. When someone has to depict his most beautiful features, how is it possible? They thought, no, Prabhupada, we'll go to art school, we'll study for 5 years, and then we will actually come and we'll start to, maybe then we can come at it on paper. But Prabhupada said no. Do you know the method that Srila Prabhupada gave to these great devotees to actually paint? That he gave them. Yes. To make squares, yes, but he taught them a technique. Okay. You can answer that with anything. But there's a more specific detail, I guess. He asked them to take a canvas and simply chant Hare Krishna, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And he asked them to continuously do that. And they were painting for 12 hours. And in the cold of Boston, Abhimanyu Sutta, you think it's cold in Atlanta sometimes? It last couple of weeks. Imagine that 10 times in Boston. Okay? Boston is known to be so cold. It's really, really cold in Boston. And now we are sitting in this nice temple where this is like the 5-star accommodation for the brahmachari. We have a nice place to stay. But back then they had no heat in their building. So the devotees were made to wear warm clothes and wrap them up. And Prabhupada would ask them to do their drawings on this canvas. And he would tell them to do it this way and and just told them to try. And then my spiritual master had this really awesome realization. He speaks about this in his lecture known as Worship Srila Prabhupada by Distributing Books. In that lecture, he says that Prabhupada transmitted of the spiritual world that he had in his heart into the heart of his disciples and made them manifest his vision of Krishna on canvas, on paper. All by the via medium of chanting Hare Krishna. Why were they able to do it? Prabhupada sent people who basically had almost no knowledge of Krishna consciousness, bare minimum knowledge of Krishna consciousness, to go and preach in Japan. If compared to people now, they must have, they would be considered they really have no knowledge. But what did they have? They had firm faith in the orders of the spiritual master. They had firm faith in Srila Prabhupada. And because they had firm faith in Prabhupada, they were able to go preach in Japan. They were able to go preach in so many places and do so many amazing things. Go to a land where you don't know the language or you don't know anyone. All you have with you is a box of Back to Godhead magazines. All right, buddy, it's your time to figure it out. And they did. They did. They did such amazing things. Shyam Sundar Prabhu and his wife, and Mukunda Prabhu and his wife, and Gurudas Prabhu and his wife, they were just sent to England and like, yeah, let's go to England and meet George Harrison and convert George Harrison and spread Krishna consciousness like that. I mean, don't you all think, from a realistic, from a mundane perspective, these guys still need to get off of drugs. How can they think like this? How is it possible? But they had faith in Prabhupada. Let's go meet him and convert him to Krishna consciousness. And by converting him to Krishna consciousness, the only person I know who's trying to reach out to Elon Musk is my own spiritual master, Bhaktivikas Swami. And, he's leaving that work up to us to reach out to these people and convert them to Krishna consciousness and give them the real. Prabhupada made purports and paintings all come about. The devotees had faith in Srila Prabhupada. They knew that this is the person we have to follow. By following, they had full faith in this. And because they had full faith in it, they were able to do it. They actually, Rameshwar Prabhu actually says that when Prabhupada put his cane down in LA on the beach, I don't know which beach it was. What is Venice Beach? Venice Beach, okay. Venice Beach, he put his cane down and told him, impossible is a word in Fool's Dictionary. Actually, before that, he told him, put his cane down. Where is book? Where is book? Where is book? Where is book? Put his cane down. Said, Prabhupada, we can't do it in 2 months. That's impossible. Impossible is a word in a Fool's Dictionary. And Rameshwar Prabhu tells that when Prabhupada did that, he was surrounded by all the heavy-duty men of the Krishna consciousness movement. Brahmananda, Tamal Krishna, Bhavananda, Kirtanananda, all the heavy-duty, heavy people of the movement were all around Srila Prabhupada. They're all staring at Rameshwar Prabhu at that time. And Prabhupada just left him and walked away. And then at that point of time, Rameshwar Prabhu describes that he felt his intelligence expand. He felt his intelligence actually, come about, and he actually felt, he got like a download from Krishna. He got a download from Krishna himself. He got this download from Krishna, and then Krishna gave him the intelligence to see how it is possible.
Also his production manager,
Radha Vallabha Prabhu. Yeah, they were both together, and they both got this download from Krishna. And then they started working it out. And it was just like the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is a pastime of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When we go out and we distribute Srila Prabhupada's books, know this to be the pastime of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Know this to be Lord Chaitanya personally interfering in the life of a conditioned soul in order to bring him back to the lotus feet of Krishna. You must know this to be a fact. By having this amount of faith in the bona fide spiritual master, by having this amount of faith in Krishna, by having this amount of faith in Prabhupada, impossible is actually a word in a fool's dictionary. We should not think that these things are not possible. These things are possible. And because when we actually give our life to Krishna, when we give our life to Prabhupada, Prabhupada becomes very grateful. So many times, I've been telling, devotees, what is the first line you tell people? How do you distribute books? The way it's not what you say, it's what you pray. It's what you pray to Krishna. I was thinking that, so many times, in the battle of Kurukshetra, both the soldiers are fighting the battle, and the great Maharathas are actually like releasing celestial missiles upon their foes and crushing them by the thousands and by the hundreds of thousands. They're crushing them by this. And in order to do this, they invoke their arrows with celestial mantras, with special mantras. They invoke the arrows. They make their prayers to specific deities or demigods or whatever. And they invoke that arrow with the power of such a deadly weapon. We see that Lord Balaram invoked the power of a Brahmastra in a blade of grass, in a blade of kusha grass, and he kills Romaharshana Sutta with it. And by doing I was thinking that when we're out there distributing books, it's not what we say, it's what we pray. So one thing which was working a lot for me when I was personally distributing books myself is that every word I'm telling someone, I'm infusing every word, every line, every sentence with a prayer. while I'm saying something to someone, just like they infuse the weapon with the potency of the different demigods in order to destroy their enemies, I'm trying to infuse all my sentences and all my everything that I'm telling to people with a prayer, with a deep, heartfelt prayer to the lotus feet of my spiritual master Yatindra. By doing this, I've actually experienced many, many miracles happening in my own life. And by doing this, we can actually understand that we will please Srila Prabhupada very, very much. And I will end the class after just showing this one short video of Srila Prabhupada. It's just a 2-minute video where Prabhupada expresses his gratitude for the devotees who are distributing his books day in and day out. This is just audio, so, oh, please don't have an advertisement. Oh, God. Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, but that's from WhatsApp. It's from my. It was downloaded onto my phone. Yeah, so this, when we hear this, okay. Anyway, if it's going to give us a hard time.
Try opening it up on Safari. Copy the link. Open it up on Safari. Click share. Copy.
Okay. Okay, sorry. How about this? I have an idea. I'll just play it through the speaker of this. It's an audio. So this is an audio. Please pay attention.
Gradually, I became
Turn it up, please.
attached to these Gaudiya Mount activities, and by the grace of Krishna, my business also was not going very well. Krishna says, Jasahon Grindami Hariseta Dhanam Sani. If somebody wants to be actually devotee of Krishna, at the same time keeps his material attachment, then Krishna's business is he takes away everything material so that same person he becomes, dependent on Krishna. So that actually happened to my life. I was obliged to come to this movement, to take up this very seriously. And I was dreaming that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is calling me, please come out with me. So I was sometimes horrified. Oh, what is this? I have to give up my family life. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is calling me. I have to take sannyas. Oh, I was horrified. But I saw several times calling me. Anyway, it is by his grace I was forced to give up my family life and so-called business life. And he brought me somewhere or other in preaching his gospel. So, this is a memorable day. What he deserved. I am trying little bit, and you are all helping me. So I have to thank you more. You are actually representative of my Guru Maharaj. Because you are helping me in executing the order of my Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much.
So we can see this, in Prabhupada. This is his desire. So please, distribute books, distribute books, distribute books. And, we should not think it's impossible for us to break above and beyond our limits of the mind. We'll actually be able to distribute more books this year. This year we have big plans, Bhagavatam book distribution. So many things are going to happen in a scale that I've never seen before, never been seen before. It's time for us to unleash the beast. So I'll end the class here. If there's any questions, yes, Prabhu, comments, corrections.
Thank you for a very wonderful and enlightening talk. I'm sorry I didn't get here on time. I have to sun gaze every day for my brain and my eyes. But anyway, I wanted to express.
Prabhu, could you please?
One of the points I wanted to make yesterday, which I'm sorry went out of my brain when I was nervously speaking about the Guru, is that from what I can understand, Bhaktivedanta Swami is the primary and the most
Please, the
active
camera.
leader, guru in our movement, who is fulfilling the prophecy that the Krishna consciousness movement is an extension of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he is the one really pushing forward such an amazing example and leadership to bring us to this platform. This is what, we're meant to do. And we are the Krishna consciousness movement. I've heard this many times from different bona fide places. Is an extension of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We are living it now in Krishna life. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just amazing. I was having so much fun. Thank you. You were answering so many questions. You were asking, but you were answering so many questions with a very practical example of Srila Prabhupada's life. I hope I don't lose the chain of thought. You were I do that too, it comes and goes. But it's about 4 points connected, so I can't lose it. You were talking about Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada, he didn't know us, but he came here. But actually, Srila Prabhupada it all connects. He did know us. He didn't know our names. He didn't know our disciplines, but he knew our conditioning. He knew our suffering. He knew our true origin and the relationship that we had with Krishna and with him. So he came to bring that message. And when that started happening, it's leaving me. But then the point of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta in that meeting, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta tagging him, "You're an intelligent man, and you should," him and Naren, "you should speak. You should speak in the English language, and tell them later if you ever get money to distribute books." And the words you quoted, Upanishad, the empowerment, just having implicit faith in the instructions of the spiritual master. By Srila Prabhupada's example, you see what happened. You heard his words, how he was, I was scared. But he had that implicit faith. So what happens? The empowerment takes place. Implicit faith in Guru and Krishna, it all happens. And the life example of Srila Prabhupada is the example of how that happens. And then I'm going to the mind. And that mind, which is so crazy, it's engaged. It's everything you were saying was all connecting back. The mind is simply already engaged because it's engaged in Krishna's service. And the book distribution is doing the highest welfare where everyone's saying it. Krishna's telling Arjuna also, and he who studies this conversation of ours, worshiping by means of intelligence, he teaches to the devotees, for him pure devotional service is guaranteed. So you're going all over the place. But it's the slender thread is Krishna's empowerment and Prabhupada's living example. And the book distributors are getting the same thing that you see Srila Prabhupada getting. It's the empowerment directly from Krishna. Hope I got it all in there.
Hare Krishna. Anything else? Yes, Prabhu.
No, I think
No, it's fine.
No, bro, you can speak, please.
Did you want to speak?
If you have something to say, you can, please. Okay.
Yeah, but
Is she
where
here?
She's not here.
Okay.
Skirty.
Thank you.
Thank you for. I wish I'd gotten here earlier. Sorry. That's all.
Okay. Anything else from the men's side? Okay. From the Mataji's side, anything? Mataji's side. Okay, I guess you're on the Mataji's side. Okay.
I was going to ask if you're going to read anything from the Nectar book this week.
I was going to, but I got carried away.
Can you read something from there?
Can I? I mean, hey, Vishnu's the guy. Okay. I was thinking, one of the things that I really like to do, especially before breaking my record, I really used to like to meditate upon the minds of the great souls, And one person who actually distributed more books than Harinamananda Prabhu was Anir Deshavapu Prabhu, but he was doing a different kind of book distribution, that's why. So one of his realization, the spiritual master is distributing the books. The spiritual master is praying to Paramatma so that he acts through his disciples. I think that this is the way it happens. Paramatma is a driving chariot of the body, and he directs you to the proper person. The distributor is fully dependent on the spiritual master. Even the simple fact that we are getting inspired, we know who is inspiring us. We are simply listening to the lectures of the spiritual master. And the spiritual master is giving us realization, strength, and enthusiasm. Otherwise, we could not go on day after day. Sounds like something most book distributors say. And like this one of my favorite quotes from Srila Prabhupada. His book is also here, and actually my spiritual master also quotes this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 12, text number 10. And this is really important. The order of the spiritual master is the active principle of spiritual life. Anyone who disobeys the order of the spiritual master immediately becomes useless. One more? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now, this is from Harikesh Swami. Okay, I thought you liked this one. We have to please the spiritual master perfectly. Srila Prabhupada told us many times that we will please him by going out and distributing books. We know that we should preach and bring new people to the Krishna consciousness movement. But above all, Prabhupada wanted us to become pure to love Krishna. Whatever activity we perform, of course, we become pure lovers of Krishna by engaging ourselves fully in the service that our spiritual master gave us, whatever it may be. Not everybody is going to be able to go on full-time Sankirtan. But if those engaged in other services perform their services perfectly with love and devotion, they will please their spiritual master. And he will bestow his blessings upon them more and more. Then we can attain Krishna. Because when the spiritual master is satisfied, everything is perfect. And this was given in a class, and this temple, to visit this temple is my dream. Especially to get darshan, to be seen by the Gornitai of this temple. It's in Zurich on July 10th, 1991. It's like, I really love, I've seen the picture of those deities, and you can see that Lord Nityananda is really, displaying his madness in that transcendental madness. Even his eyes are rolling back in the really, really amazing deities of Lord Nityananda. That's what they say also in Harinamananda Navinir, all of them say it in that. Anyway, there's more. I'll say that this is the last one, okay? There's a quote from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Okay, and I guess if there's questions or whatever from the Mataji's side. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 7, verse number 95 to 96. Believing in the words of a spiritual master, Lord Chaitanya introduced the Sankirtan movement. Just as the present Krishna consciousness movement was started with belief in the word of our spiritual master, he wanted to preach We believed in his words and tried to somehow or the other to fulfill them. Now this movement has become successful all over the world. Therefore, faith in the words of the spiritual master and in the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the secret of success. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never disobeyed the orders of his spiritual master and stopped propagating the Sankirtan movement. We believed in the words of our spiritual master and started in a humble way, in a helpless way. But due to the spiritual force of the Supreme Authority, this movement has become successful. There's more, a lot more nectar. Jai. Anything else on the Mataji's side? No? Okay, awesome. Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Taking over the world with Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Parivadatu Jano Yata Tata Va